We're joined now by Dr. Michael Mann, distinguished professor at the University of Pennsylvania and author of Our Fragile Moment: How Lessons from the Earth's Past Can Help Us Survive the Climate Crisis. Dr. Mann, most of us aren't climate scientists. So, in layman's terms, help us understand the link between these two phenomena, wildfires and climate change.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be with you. Unfortunately, it's not good to be having to provide the context for for understanding this disaster that we've just seen play out. It's what many of us now call an unnatural disaster. It's not a natural disaster. It's been made worse by human activity. And of course, we can talk about factors like land development and how that impacts the conditions for these sorts of fires, invasive grasses. There are always a number of factors that come together to produce these sorts of catastrophes. But one of those factors, undeniably, is human caused climate change. And if you look at the data, it's pretty simple. This isn't rocket science. The area has been getting drier over time. There are long term records of precipitation from Maui that show a long term decline in precipitation, and there's a long term increase in temperature. Increased temperature means more evaporation, more evaporative loss, as we call it, means, drier. So you've got less rainfall, you've got more evaporation. You put those conditions together, and you get these sorts of droughts that favor these wildfires.
Dr. Mann, I'm a meteorologist. I'm also an environmental scientist, and I like to educate and remind people that climate change didn't create this fire specifically. They don't create specific, doesn't create specific storms. It kind of sets the environment to make these things mega storms, mega fires. This fire was horrific. Is this the new level of fires that we can expect seeing going forward because of, as you said, climate change as one of the ingredients?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Something else starts that fire. It isn't climate change that started it. In this case, it was probably a spark from electrical lines. But what allowed the fire to spread as quickly as it did, to burn as hot as it did, to cover as wide an area as it did, and do as much damage, and unfortunately take the human toll that it did, was in part because of those tinderbox conditions, those very dry conditions that are part of a larger trend. Now, for more than a month, Maui has been experiencing severe drought, and wildfires were actually starting to break out more than a month ago. So, the conditions for these sorts of fires had already been laid down. And unfortunately, when you had a number of factors come together, another one was the fact that there was this hurricane to the south that deepened the pressure gradient somewhat. That created even stronger winds, maybe 5 or 6% stronger than they would have been, but perhaps enough to push things across that threshold that yielded these very catastrophic fires that we saw play out over the last week. And so climate change is part of the story. And you ask, is this a new normal? It could be even worse than that. If we continue to pollute the atmosphere with carbon pollution and continue to warm up the planet, things will get worse. The best case scenario is a new normal where we prevent it from getting worse by lowering carbon emissions, and stopping the factors that are leading to these increasingly catastrophic occurrences.
Dr. Mann, let's talk about prevention here for just a moment. Many people think climate change has to be solved by international leaders, but really, what should local leaders be doing to prevent this from happening in the future?
Yeah, and again, it's always more complicated. We like to boil things down to one simple rule. We have to do this, we have to do this. We have to do a bunch of things. First of all, we have to prevent it from getting worse. The only way we do that is by transitioning off fossil fuels, moving towards renewable energy, stopping the carbon pollution that is contributing to the continued warming of the planet, the continued drying that we're seeing in subtropical regions. We've got to prevent the problem from getting worse by getting off fossil fuels as quickly as possible. That having been said, we already operate now in this new sort of elevated environment of risk. We're going to have to deal with some of those climate impacts that are now baked in. And that's going to mean that we have to take steps to ensure greater resilience. We need to adapt to these new conditions that we're contending with.
Doctor, last question for you. What do we do as individuals in our neighborhoods, in our houses to try and as much as we can move forward on climate change? What can we do as an individual?
Yeah, the most important thing we can do is talk about it, vote on it, make sure everybody we know, our family, our friends, our schoolmates, our fellow churchgoers, what have you, make it part of the conversation because that puts the pressure on policymakers to act on our behalf. Otherwise, there's a lot of pressure coming towards them from polluters, from fossil fuel interests, and they're going to give in to that pressure if there isn't equal and opposite pressure from us, the citizens, the voters. So, use the voice that you have, use the vote that you have. And if we elect climate forward policymakers, then we will get the policies that we need. If we don't, then we're going to continue to have this problem.
Yeah. Dr. Michael Mann reminding us that we are not powerless in this situation. We thank you so much for joining us and lending us your expertise. These